Welcome to another Biggs Mobile Detailing video. My name's Isaiah, and this is the first part of the detail where you wash and prep the vehicle. This is very important to make things easier for the rest of the detail job, so make sure you pay close attention. First thing I'll do is get my equipment ready. I'll need to unlock my tote with all my heavy equipment and start getting some of these chemicals out. So feel free to watch and see how I do everything. Now, you'll see that the pressure washer is set up. It's going to be your main tool for the wash of the vehicle. You'll notice here that I closed the bin that has all the other equipment. The general working space still looks pretty nice and neat, and that's something that you want to keep in mind as you set up. Minimize everything that you have out. Don't make it look like a mess. Make sure that if the customer were to walk out at any time, they'll be happy with how their driveway looks. So now I'm going to go ahead and get started with cleaning off my mitts and starting to wash the vehicle. Notice that I'm going to spray off a section of the ground in order to place the mitt on, and then I'm going to clean it from the ground. Now that your mitt is clean and your buckets are clean, we use the 2-bucket method. You're going to choose one as your soap bucket, one as your rinsing bucket. Whichever bucket is your rinsing bucket, you put your grit guard inside of that bucket and just go ahead and fill it up with water. Once that's full, you're going to make your soap bucket. Take your wash and wax, put 1 ounce, approximately 1 ounce in there. That should be good. Fill this up with water until it becomes sudsy and you feel like you have enough to cover all of the vehicle. So the next thing, now that you have your soap and everything clean, you're going to want to take the mats out of the vehicle and start degreasing the car. So this car happens to have rubber floor mats. This means that we're going to degrease them and then pressure wash them off. If they were to be cloth floor mats, you'd want to put them somewhere dry and we'll vacuum and steam those later. but rubber ones actually save a bit of time. We can just spray them off with a pressure washer. Be sure to put them far away from the car where they won't get wet from overspray. This is your degreaser. Looks like we're a bit low, but it'll at least get us through this phase, then we can refill it later. We'll hold the mat like this, spray it on there, and let it start to soak in. Make sure that you're far enough away from the vehicle that no overspray gets on the paint. Cover the entire floor mat and let it sit for a little while. Once you've sprayed the mats and they're sitting, now we're gonna go through and get the door jambs, the rims, the tires, and the wheel wells with this same degreaser. Start with the rims, tires, and wheel wells. You wanna get down here, spray the degreaser. I like to start with the rims. Get everything covered. Then on the tires, you just give it a quick spray like this. In the wheel wells, you do the same thing. You're going to repeat that for the rest of the vehicle. After you're done with those, you're going to go ahead and do the door jambs. Now the trick with the door jambs is to not get a lot of water inside of the vehicle. You want to minimize that. So what we do is we kind of make a U shape with the door. We're going to start here, go down, under, and come back up here. Don't do a full circle. Don't get the upper part, because if you try to spray that out, you're going to get water all over the place. Just get the lower part. Just a general covering like this. Come down like this to the top. Do that for the door as well as the part that connects to the body of the vehicle. You're going to repeat that for all the other doors as well as the trunk jamb for the vehicle. Now that you have degreaser sprayed on the floor mats as well as the door jambs, the rims, and the tires and the wheel wells, you're going to want to move on to spraying this stuff off. So let's start with the floor mats. We're going to take our pressure washer, get it somewhere close, and then just walk over to it, and you're going to spray off the degreaser and see all the gunk come out of the mats. Try to get every angle and really push everything off. That's how you do that. I like to pick it up, let the water drip off, and then place it somewhere on the driveway that also is not wet. So something like this. Let it dry out for the rest of the detail. Now we're going to take our pressure washer, head back to the car, and get the rims, tires, wheel wells, and door jambs. I like to spray everything off in the order that I put it on. So I'll go ahead and start with these rims, tires, and wheel wells. Spray in a downwards motion, trying to avoid getting water on the paint. Also try to avoid getting the pressure washer head too close to the paint. You don't want to damage anything, you just want to get the dirt out of the car. Now with this, as I mentioned earlier, make sure you're trying to avoid getting as much water inside of the vehicle as possible. We're going to spray in a downwards motion and an outwards motion. So if you watch here, it's going to be downwards. I position my body so that I'm on the inside of the car, so the water is mostly going to go outside. just like so. Now for the inside, same thing. You want to be as careful as you can. Spray down and out. Down and out. Down and out. And with that, the car might have a little bit of wetness. You can go back over it with a microfiber. Just kind of grab the water spots, and that should be about it. You go through all the door jambs, the trunk jam, and even the gas cap area with the same exact method. One last thing you want to do before you wash the car is check to see if there's any moss on the exterior. A lot of times, this will show up in the form of little green dust that's on the window seals. Maybe it's in the mirror. It might be kind of along the edges of the windshield or even in the roof around here. So just make sure that the car doesn't have any. We're lucky today, this car doesn't have a lot of moss, but if it were, this is exactly how I would remove it. Imagine there's moss here. You want to spray the degreaser just lightly right above it. Let it drip into the area, just like so. You would do that for all the parts of the car that have the moss, and then you'd come back with your pressure washer and you just spray that out. You want to make sure you get in the cracks and that all the moss is coming out of there, because if you realize it later in the detail, it's going to be a lot harder to get the moss out. The pressure washer makes this job a lot easier, so make sure you get all the moss before you start washing the car. Next step of the process is to rinse, wash, and dry the vehicle. One thing that you want to make sure of, there's no open doors or windows. It's pretty self-explanatory of why that could cause a problem when you're spraying water on the car. Make sure the doors and windows are all closed and everything is ready to go for the rinse. I like to check on the weather. Today we're lucky, we're in some shade, so the sun isn't shining right on the car. But if you do happen to be directly in the sunlight, especially with the black vehicle, try to avoid letting the water dry on the vehicle, especially if it has soap in the water. Today we're lucky, we don't have to worry about it too much, but keep that in mind in the future. You always want to keep the car wet, never let the sun dry the vehicle's paint. So now we're going to rinse the car. Once you have your whole vehicle rinsed, you're going to go ahead and grab your buckets of soap and clean water. Touch this up a little bit, make sure that it's still sudsy. It might have been sitting around for a while you degreased. So just give it a little spray. And now the suds should be back. You'll go ahead, roll up your sleeves, and start cleaning the vehicle like this. Now one thing that I like to do is take it panel by panel. I even cut the hood in half. So I do this half of the hood first. And it's my own personal methodology. By building a habit that you can personally stick to, you're able to make sure that you don't miss any spots while you're washing the car. So try to think of how you feel comfortable. I feel comfortable by starting here, going all the way around, panel by panel, and then ending in this same exact spot. Now I'm going to move on to this panel. Make sure everything is taken care of. And if it was hot outside and I was in the sun, I would probably stop here, rinse this off, make sure the rest of the car is wet, and continue. But I'm in the shade today, so I don't have to worry about that. Make sure you get inside of any creases around the door handles, because later that will be very difficult to clean. I've completed this section of the car that I want to wash. I'm going to go ahead and take my brush, clean it in the clean water with the grit guard at the bottom, and you just kind of scrub it like that. It gets off any of the gunk that might have been on the mitt. You can re-dip it in the soapy water, continue for the rest of the vehicle, and that's how you wash the car. Once you've washed the car with your soap and your mitt, now you're gonna need to get that soap off. Make sure that this is done before the sun dries the soap into the paint. You're gonna just take your pressure washer, you can put it at a lighter setting, and just push the soap off the vehicle. That's how you rinse the car. Now it's time to dry it. You want to do this in a fairly time-sensitive manner because you don't want the sun and the natural elements to dry the car for you. The first thing you'll do is pick your favorite drying towel. We have a few different options here at Biggs Mobile Detailing. I personally like this one. It's a nice waffle weave microfiber and it really soaks up the water. It's also pretty large, so I can generally use it for the whole vehicle, maybe only squeeze out the water once or twice. We also have this. It's the Metro Sidekick Blaster. It shoots out warm filtered air and it just kind of generally helps me get the extra stuff, maybe get in the cracks and blast some air to get the water out of there. So if you watch, I'll be leading with this hand, but I won't really be watching too much. I'll keep it away from the paint and I'll be more focused on drying with this hand. So go ahead and take a look. Continue that method around the whole car until the whole thing is dry and there's not a drop on the paint. Now that you've finished drying the vehicle, you're going to want to go ahead and make sure all of your equipment is in a good spot to dry out, make sure it doesn't build up any mold or moss, and make sure it's out of the customer's way. So I'll go ahead and do that. Now that you're done with the wash and the equipment cleanup, make sure you turn off the water. You don't want it building up and causing pressure to your pressure washer. It will cause it to break sooner, and so to save the life on the pressure washers, you want to just turn this off.